What happens in an emergency when the nearest medical center can be up to 3 hours away? A trip made even more dangerous during winter weather conditions. I recently spoke to Carrie Thrower Moore about her ordeal when faced with a serious medical emergency. Hi, Carrie. How are you? Nice to see you today.
Hi, Kim. Thanks so much for asking me to do this. It's really good to see you.
Carrie, I'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself. First of all, what do you do? And then I want to get into your story because it's interesting how what happened to you is could have been a lot worse and sort of is reflected in the story about the emergency services cuts that they want to propose.
Well, yeah, hi. I work here in Terrace Bay. I live in Schreiber. I work at the Health Information Department at North of Superior Healthcare Group, the McCausland Hospital. And I've been there for about, 25 years. I love this area. I wouldn't leave it. I've got family here. My husband has his family here. We grew up here, born and bred. And it just seemed that I wasn't feeling very well. And on that Thursday afternoon at about 4:10, about 4 o'clock, I just collapsed in my chair. And I had paralysis of my entire left side, complete paralysis, and couldn't move, couldn't pick up the phone. I was trying so hard. And then I just took a deep breath and put my head down and just waited for Dan to come home. And he came home luckily within 10 minutes. And then he called the ambulance immediately. They came to the front door. It wasn't very long, honestly. They were there in a snap. And right away, I garbled out that I had atrial fibrillation. They assessed me quick. They decided to take me right to Thunder Bay because of this stroke bypass that is in place. And people don't realize that it is. It's in combination workings with the ambulance, the EMS, and the Thunder Bay. I don't know, is it the stroke, Thunder Bay Emergency Services? I don't know. But it's called stroke bypass. And they do a quick assessment. And if the patients meet a certain criteria, that patient can go to Thunder Bay. There's only that 3-hour window to get that clot busting medication that will dissolve the clot, that would save your life or reduce the symptoms of what you're going through, the weakness, the paralysis, the speech. And so they got me up there quickly. I immediately was able to get the medication at Thunder Bay Regional. Dr. Sweet, the neurologist, Dr. Marchuk, the neurosurgeon. There was a ER physician there. I'm so sorry, I can't remember your name. A locum there and a nurse. And I'm in the CT and they realized I had a clot in my carotid, large, and then a large one right in the mid cerebral artery and anterior cerebral artery. So it was during that CT that I started actually having a stroke. What I had at home was a TIA, transient ischemic attack. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was a stroke. I just wanted to get to Thunder Bay and get this medication quick. But I started having a stroke in Thunder Bay in the CT. And I remember Dr. Marchuk yelled in because it was painful and excruciating. He said, "Carrie, you're having a stroke now. You can't move. Don't move." And then I remember hearing the nurse, "Carrie, don't move." My head was taped. And then I heard him say, "Give her fentanyl and midazolam." And then I was out. And I remember waking up. And when I woke up, I have to tell you, it was the most amazing feeling. It was when you stand under a shower and all the water is just on your head, and it's like weird feeling where you tickle, and it was that tenfold, 100-fold. I was laughing out loud. And then I remember the nurse going, "Okay." And he says it must be just the reperfusion of all the blood coming back into my brain, because there was that short time, there was absolutely no blood flow on the right side of my brain. And when I remember waking up and they had me in. I'm getting ready to go to the ICU. My husband came. He was able, or I was seeing him after the procedure for the first time. I just realized he was there. And Dr. Marchak, he just couldn't believe that our EMT didn't divert to another facility. McCausland Hospital is 10 minutes away. And it would have knocked down that time frame to allow for the drug. He couldn't get over it. Although it's in place. All EMTs know about it, which was somewhat a little shocking, but it was the EMTs came in, quick assessment, did what they need to do, recognized what was going on according to their protocols, and threw me in the back of the van and got me up.
Carrie, you mentioned about a 3-hour window. Now, approximately how much time passed from the time that you had called the ambulance until you got to the hospital in Thunder Bay? Because I think this is a big concern and something that a lot of people in larger centers don't understand. We're very, very rural out here. And if something were to happen in the winter, a normal trip to Thunder Bay is over 2.5 hours long. So you've got to account for an ambulance being close by, getting you in the thing, driving you, if hopefully there's no snowstorm. I mean, these guys are great drivers, but still the physics of driving through a snowstorm. What would your time frame like from that time that you actually called 911, let's say, and then arrived in the hospital?
You know, I haven't gone through that. I have the paperwork, and every now and then I get into it. I'm dealing with some PTSD that, you know, I just sometimes get into, and then I don't want to go there. Yeah. So I haven't, since this whole thing started with the EMT and my awareness of it, I haven't gone into it to check. But honestly, I could tell you, my father, when he stroked, in my living room about 10 years ago, we got to Thunder Bay Regional. The EMTs came, assessed, threw him in the van, got him to Thunder Bay. He had 10 minutes to get that drug.
Oh my God.
The doctor, the neurologist came in, we have 10 minutes, you need to decide. Of course we're going to take it, right? But 10 minutes, that's all he had, is that narrow window. And what if I was further out? What if Dad was further out? What if he lived at Jackfish? Yeah. Or he was up the Mill Road? You know, you don't know.
Yeah. But from what I've gathered, they want to take the service that we have right now and reduce it. Now, that would have an impact on service delivery, I imagine, and it also directly impacts people's health and their safety.
Is this an area where we should be looking at cutting? I don't think so. I think we have, well, I know right now we have 2 crews in Scriber. One crew works 24 hours a day for 4 days, and then the other crew comes on. So they're on the day shifts, and then they're on call at night for 4 hours, or 4 days, sorry. And then Terrace Bay is the same. To my understanding, they're going to amalgamate both crews, or both services, Terrace Bay and Scriber. And rather than have 4 crews for our entire catchment area, they're going to have 2. So that whole entire catchment area, which, you know, is this much on the map. You know, you're that far on the map. Yeah. But that map could be 20 hours, 15. You don't know how long. Yeah. So you look at the scale. They just don't realize the vastness that we are out here. And it's very disturbing. I just, but like I say, I'm, is that rumor? That's what I'm taking from it, is that they're going to cut from 4 to 2.
Yeah, I would say, based on the fact that there was a protest over that weekend, that I think it's probably more than a rumor. But again, what I'm, you know, I sit there and I think about it. It's not just Scriber Terrace, but other communities are also being affected. And I don't know I'm trying to find out more information too, where the decision is coming from. I hope it's not provincial. I heard it's from Thunder Bay side. But when you look at our area, I mean, your perspective, even if in Thunder Bay, it's a city you can get anywhere in 10 or 15 minutes. I mean, in any emergency situation, even hopping into a cab or something, you know, would get you somewhere in a few minutes. But like you said, imagine there's an incident we have a lot of industry up in this area, the pulp and paper mill, the mines. Imagine there would be an incident in Terrace Bay at the mill, and there's this case where somebody has to get transported to Thunder Bay right away. I mean, that literally 3 hours is the difference between life and death, what they're proposing. And then with the cuts, what if somebody was on a call somewhere else and they weren't available? Because we're in a similar situation right now with the fire department. We do have excellent fire department, and there's a lot of cooperation between communities, but there's always a chance. I mean, a road accident occurs, the fire is out there, the ambulance is out there, the police are out there. You're actually just sitting there in limbo. There's nothing you can do should a second incident occur. Yeah. Absolutely
frightening. Their buildings that they have currently, some are in poor shape. Most of them aren't up to standard. Mm-hmm. They need to have the air quality in check, and so they're looking at building new facilities, and there's no funds for that. Mm-hmm. And so by amalgamating and having one station, they're reduced and renting that station, not owning it. Mm-hmm. They are, in the long run, better off financially. Mm-hmm. Put it on plate. Here you go. We'll rent from you. You keep it up to standard, and we're good. We'll have the service here. It's frightening to know that someone who is boisterous, you know, and did all the preparation and the planning and created this document, printed it out and handed it to these counselors. And our lives are in the hands of counselors who are going on what's recommended to do, not what is truly out there. Have they been out this way? Are they asking the questions? Are they digging in for more information to satisfy their needs to make a well-informed decision? And there are times there is no ambulance service. We know that. Well, do most people know that? I don't know. They do now. But honestly, there are, and we know that. Having the 4 rather than the 2 would save. And it's scary how the counselors are voting on this. You don't know. That's why I wrote the letter, and other people are writing letters, and there's protests, and that's great. You know, get out there, make noise, and make a well-informed decision on this. There's been no consultation with any of the communities. Like, this decision is being made without any input from the communities that are going to be affected. The decision had already been made that, yes, this is what they were going to do. It's not had it been made or will it be made. It had been made that they were going to do this, and they were going to do the 2 amalgamations in Nipigon, Red Rock, and Beardmore, and then others. Mm-hmm. They voted on that. Mm-hmm. Then with the mayors speaking out, they turned their truck around, and they're just going to sit back. They're going to wait. They're going to review and think about the things, take all the information in, and then make a well-informed decision. That's all we can ask, is that they can take all this information that's coming from everywhere and make a good decision that's safe and healthy for residents of Northwestern Ontario. We live here in Northwestern Ontario. We choose to live here. That's no doubt. You're here, I'm here. Everyone who is here because they want to be. We know that Nipigon and Terrace Bay don't have an operating room. We know that they don't have specialists like orthopedics, surgeon, a general surgeon, urology, gastro. We know that. We also know that we don't have a CT scan and an MRI scan, but yet we still choose to live here. We have our EMT service that we count on, and we all know throughout the years that they're going to get us there. They're going to get us there in time, and they're good. Even if there is areas where things are a little mishmash, they work around it. They get us there, even right to Thunder or to any of the emergency departments, and we're assessed. If we have to get out, they get us out. Mm-hmm. Right? It's beyond the EMS care there. It's a part of the puzzle. The first piece is calling 911. The second is EMS shows up. They do their assessment, they take you, and they get you in the truck and take you to ER or wherever. By removing that second piece of the puzzle, you are wreaking havoc. You're throwing a dagger at people. You're removing that most important part of saving lives. It's the initial, they're EMS, they're emergency services for first responders for a reason. That's their job. And even by removing that one piece, people are going to die. You have diabetic emergencies that need medication, myocardial infarction that need that can use medication.
There's a lot of seniors in our area too.
There is seniors as well, but that medication is given with the diabetic emergencies and the heart attacks. The medication can be given, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not going to presume, that they can be given by the EMS. So by removing that piece, you're looking at overdose with Narcan. There's medications they're trained to give. And if they're not there within that time frame, or that's a suitable time frame, it's not going to be very good. People are going to die.
Yeah. Sadly.
And there are seniors. We have other emergencies that go on, and but the thing is just removing that piece. Further down, you remove a piece, things can get worked out. They work around it. You have more people on board now and more input. So, you get the job done. The patient's taken care of, you're safe, you're healthy, and you will be taken care of. Right off the bat, you're removing EMS. By one decision, yay or nay.
But quite often you'll hear people in larger centers and they say, well, you choose to live in the smaller areas, you assume that risk and responsibility. But the thing I want to say to a lot of them, and you can't help but being sort of semi-sarcastic, to a point where you would say, listen, do you go to a store and purchase goods? Those goods are shipped by rail. Those towns, every 2 hours apart, need to be manned by people who are living in remote areas, partially by necessity for the companies that need to have those people at those locations. Do you write on a piece of paper? Do you buy toilet paper for personal hygiene? That stuff has to be produced, and it's done in our area. So we have a very vital and important role in small communities. And rather than being penalized and forced to grab at scraps, we should actually, our role in the country's economy should be recognized. And I'm not saying we should be prioritized, but at least be put on the same level. And this assumption that, you choose to live in a rural area, you take the risks, it doesn't really hold water in a lot of arguments.
It doesn't, but they keep bringing it up, right? So something that we have to listen to, and you just sweep it under the rug, deal with it in your own way. But I guess after a while, there's only so much that I could sweep under the rug.
Yeah, and I think that's a good introduction to this letter that you wrote on Facebook. I'd like to talk about that for a second. You've been having a lot of response from the letter you put on Facebook. Can you tell us a little bit about well, obviously we know your main motivation, but what made you finally just say, I'm sitting down and writing this? What did you actually mention in there that you hope will have an effect with people? I
was approached by a counselor to see, because I had voiced my comments on Facebook about our local EMS, and how after I was feeling well enough, I wanted to go and hug them and thank them for saving my life, and explain this in my Facebook note of what they did, how quickly they did it, and how well they did it. They're trained for that. My life was in their hands, and I'm alive today because of them. And so he asked if I would like to write a letter, and I said yes. He said, okay. He'll give my name to Dave Hamilton, our mayor at the time, and he'll be in touch with me. So within a week, Dave had called me, and we talked over the phone. And of course, in writing a letter, of such importance. This is life or death here. I wanted to get as much information as I could, and he was able to provide some answers to questions I had, and it was a really great conversation. So I agreed to write the letter, but I put it on the back burner because I didn't put it on the back burner. I just put it to the side, and whenever I thought of something in my head that I wanted to write, the distance for it. Do they even know the distance of our vast area? So I put distance, and then all my notes of the topics I wanted to incorporate into the letter. And then, of course, as everyone knows, Dave was killed in the accident from coming from a meeting in Marathon on this topic.
Yeah.
And it inspired me to give it my all.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry.
I didn't realize that Dave was actually coming back from that particular meeting. That makes it even more poignant, doesn't it?
It really does. I didn't know that. Bert Johns from Terrace Bay had mentioned that to me in a posting on Facebook. But so I took everything. I sat down and I took a good week and a half to write, and every now and then I'd go back to it. And I'm getting the town, Kevin, our mayor now, he's texting me, how's that letter coming? It's not,
yeah.
I'm just not there yet. There's a few things I'm missing. And in the end, I'm reading through it, and all of a sudden it came to me like, you're an EMS and you are trained to save lives. And they're removing, like they're increasing your vast area, your catchment. They're decreasing your work or your crews. How is that emotionally on the ambulance crews? Each of them is individuals who are trying and racing to get to you to save your life, and they can't do it. They get there, it's too late. You're in the back and the patient passes. How, that is a huge mental health issue. We all know that there's post-traumatic stress disorders high in that, mental health issues. So I added that. That was my last point, I believe. Mm-hmm. The most, out of the whole letter, I found the last portion, the last question to each of the counselors, whoever is making this decision, that, you understand that you are taking the onus on saving lives or having people die by making this decision. And if you're going to make the decision, will you be able to sleep at night? And are you willing to accept the consequences of your decision if you choose to go ahead to increase the size of our catchment areas in this whole region and to decrease the crews, making it almost impossible for people to get the help they need when they need it. Mm. And we're not talking cuts and minor burns here. We're talking life. Just the consequences of not having that emergency medical care, the service that they provide, those paramedics, first responders. That's why they're called first responders. If we don't get that, people die. Yeah. It's scary. And yeah, sorry, I got a little emotional there.
I could see just by what you were saying in the letter and the facts that you've stated that you're very passionate about it. And coming from the medical background obviously gives you a lot more insight into it. And I really appreciate you taking the time with us to tell us about it. And I'm hoping that this story gets out to people and they can see what's going on.
I really do. I hope people, right now with COVID, you can't get out, you can't protest, those friendly protests. Get the pen and paper, write it down, email it, send your thoughts and send your views and your fears, and it's the only way.
Thanks very much for doing this.
Thanks so much, Kim. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I know I'm not alone. There are so many people out there, and I have a lot of people who've come up to me and given me their information and what happened to them. It's scary, and they've written their letters. Just write, come on, people, write more.
Thanks, Carrie.